Problem 523 is an introduction to systems of equations, and it's kind of a neat story problem. It's a dog sled race, and this is the resource page that they give us to kind of mark up and draw on. It says the sled drivers, known as mushers, start their dog sleds at Fairbanks, Alaska. So they start at Fairbanks, Alaska, and ride through the snow for several days until they reach Nome, Alaska. Along the route, there are stations where the competitors check in, so data is kept on the progress of each team. That's the markings. Joyla and her team of dogs have made it through the first 5 checkpoints. Since there's 4 circles and 5 triangles, this must be Joyla. So Joyla is in the race, and she's checking in at 5 checkpoints. So if we get comfortable with this graph, time is passing, and distance from Fairbanks. Remember, Fairbanks is where the race started. So this right here is the start of the race. So from here, we have, as time goes by, Joyla is making some progress. Notice it's not in a perfect straight line, but it is still in a linear path. It's hard for some students to understand. It doesn't have to be perfectly in a straight line. It's a scatter plot. So some days are a little faster than other days. As long as it travels in a straight path, we consider it linear. Likewise, these circles are in a straight path. We consider them linear, even though it's not perfectly straight. So what are the circles about? It says Evie, who is a friend, left Nome, Alaska, which is the finish line, on the day the race started in an effort to meet Joyla and offer encouragement. Evie traveled along the route toward the racers on her snowmobile. The progress of each person is shown in the graph. Okay, so this is, the triangles are Joyla, the racer. The circles are Evie, who is the friend, and the friend started somewhere up here, which is the finish line, and is on her way to meet Joyla. Joyla is on her way racing to end up at the finish line. So a lot of things to figure out in this problem. First thing, Evie is the friend, Joyla is the racer. They want us to put down what markings stand for what. So Joyla, she's the triangles, and Evie are the circles. How do we know that? Because Joyla starts at 0, 0, because in this race, it's distance from Fairbanks, and Fairbanks is the start. So distance from Fairbanks, she's going away from the starting line. Okay. So when did they meet? Well, we're going to have to speculate here. And what we do to speculate is we draw what's called a line of best fit. So I like to turn my paper so I'm looking down my triangles. And I know it goes through the origin. And then I can't just pick any one triangle. I have to kind of split the difference, and I'm going to draw that line like so. So if you notice what I did, maybe I didn't do it perfectly, but I went through as many triangles as I possibly could, and the ones that I didn't go through, hopefully, are staggered on this line. And I didn't do a great job because I got one that's definitely lower than the line, but I don't see any that are higher than the line. So I did my best. That is my prediction of the direction Joyla, or the pace that Joyla is taking. Likewise, the circles. Again, I'm going to do my best to put this in a spot that goes through, and I wanted to hit as many dots as I could so I have a direction of where it came from. So this is the friend, this is the racer, and notice that they cross. So think about what that would mean. So when did they meet? This is where they met. They met right when they cross. Now, obviously, this just goes on forever, but the friend actually didn't do this part here. Once they met, the friend stayed with Joyla, but this is just looking at their paths. It looks like they met around I'm just going to say approximately 80, 90, 100. I'm going to say about 95. They met, right with my marker, at approximately 95 hours into the race. How long was the race? Well, the clue that we have on this one is we remember that Evie left from the finish line. So if we look up here, since this is where the line hits, this here would be considered the finish line. So the question asks, how long was the race? We have to assume the race is 1,100 miles. Because Evie's line hits the y-axis at 1,100, and that would mean that when the race started, time is 0, Evie left wherever the finish line is, which is 1,100. Who is faster, Evie or Joyla? Well, if they left at the same time and they hit at what appears to be between 450 and 500, that means that the friend Evie traveled 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, over 600 miles. So Evie over 600 miles, and Joyla around over 450 miles. So as a result, Evie is faster because in the same amount of time, Evie traveled farther. Farther in the same amount of time. Last question. How long did it take Joyla to finish the race? Well, if Joyla continues on her pace, we're looking at right here where it hits the finish line of 1,100 miles, and it appears like the answer is going to be around to about 220 hours. Okay, so that's a pretty tough question. It's a good one to get comfortable with systems of equations. And systems of equations just means multiple lines and what they stand for and what they mean when they cross. That is problem 5-23.